Dear students, +1 ഹിസ്റ്ററി ഫോക്കസിംഗ് ഏരിയ ബേസ്ഡ് ക്ലാസ്സാണ് നമ്മൾ എടുത്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്. പ്രധാനമായിട്ടും ഫോക്കസിംഗ് ഏരിയയിൽ ഹിസ്റ്ററിയിൽ നിന്നുള്ള എല്ലാ യൂണിറ്റുകളും ഫോക്കസിംഗ് ഏരിയയിലുണ്ട്. അതിൽ നമ്മൾ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ചില ഭാഗങ്ങളാണ് ഇന്നിവിടെ ചർച്ച ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ഫസ്റ്റ് യൂണിറ്റ് നോക്കാം നമുക്ക്. ഫ്രം ദി ബിഗിനിങ് ഓഫ് ടൈം, ദ സ്റ്റോറി ഓഫ് ഹ്യൂമൻ എവല്യൂഷൻ. The story of human evolution, enormously long and somewhat complicated. Primates were the earliest group in the process of human evolution. They emerged nearly 36 million years ago. Primates are a subgroup of a larger group of mammals. They include monkeys, apes, and humans. They have body, hair, a relatively long gestation periods, following birth, mammary glands, different types of teeth, and the ability to maintain a constant body temperature. അപ്പോൾ ഇത് പറയുന്നത് പ്രധാനമായിട്ടും ഹ്യൂമൻ എവല്യൂഷൻ, മനുഷ്യ പരിണാമം തുടങ്ങുന്നത് പ്രിമേറ്റ്സുടെ കാലഘട്ടത്തിൽ തുടങ്ങുന്നതാണ്. ഏകദേശം 36 മില്യൺ വർഷങ്ങൾക്ക് മുമ്പാണ് തുടങ്ങുന്നതെന്ന് പറയുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇത് ഒരു തരം മാമ്മൽസുകളാണ്. ഇവർ ലാർജ് ഗ്രൂപ്പ് ഓഫ് മാമ്മൽസുകളാണ്. ആരൊക്കെ ഇൻക്ലൂഡ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്? മങ്കീസ് ഉണ്ട്, ഏപ്സ് ഉണ്ട്, മനുഷ്യരുണ്ട്. ഇവരുടെ ഒരു നേച്ചർ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ദേ ഹാവ് ബോഡി, ഹെയർ, അവർക്ക് രോമങ്ങളുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. എ റിലേറ്റീവ്ലി ലോങ് ജസ്റ്റേഷൻ പീരിയഡ്, ഫ്ലോയിങ് ബർത്ത്, ആൻഡ് ഡിഫറെൻറ്റ് ടൈപ്സ് ഓഫ് ടീത്ത്, പല്ലിൻ്റെ പ്രത്യേകതകളുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ദ എബിലിറ്റി ടു മെയിൻറ്റെയിൻ എ കോൺസ്റ്റൻറ്റ് ബോഡി ടെമ്പറേച്ചർ, ശരീരോഷ്മാവ് നിയന്ത്രിക്കുന്നതിന് അവർക്ക് സാധിച്ചിരുന്നു. 24 million years ago, a subgroup amongst primates called hominoids emerged. Much later, nearly 5.6 million hominoid emerged from hominids. Hominoids and hominids have certain common features. They also have certain differences too. Hominoids have a smaller brain than hominids. They are quadrupeds walking on all four. Hominids have a larger brain size, upright posture, bipedal locomotion, and specialization of the hand. Hominids belongs to a family known as Hominidae, which includes all form of human being. Hominids are further divided into branches, of which Australopithecus and Homo are important. The name Australopithecus comes from a Latin word austral meaning southern and a Greek word pithekos meaning ape. Australopithecus has a smaller brain size, heavier jaws, larger teeth, and the limited dexterity of the hand than the Homo. Upright walking was restricted to Australopithecus because they spent most of the times on tree. They had a physical characteristics suited to life on tree. The earliest fossils of Australopithecus have been found at Olduvai Gorge in East Africa. The name Homo is a Latin word meaning man. The fossils of Homo can be divided into three according to their special characteristics. They are Homo habilis, the tool maker; Homo erectus, the upright man; the Homo sapiens, the wise or thinking man. They have a larger brain, reduced jaws, and smaller teeth than Australopithecus. They have more intelligence and better memory than Australopithecus. The name of fossils are derived from the places where the first fossils of a particular type were found. So fossils found in Heidelberg, a city in Germany, were called Homo heidelbergensis, while those found in Neanderthal Valley were categorized as Homo neanderthalensis. Modern human beings. The issue of the places of the origin of modern human has been much debated. Two totally divergent views have been expounded. One advocating the regional continuity model, multiple regions of origin; the other the replacement model, single origin. According to the regional continuity model, there are multiple regions of human origin. It is based on the regional differences in the features of present day humans. According to the replacement model, modern humans originated in a single region, which is Africa. Advocates of this view point out the genetic and anatomical homogeneity of modern humans. The evidences of the earliest fossils of modern humans from Ethiopia in Africa also support the replacement model. Scholars who hold this view suggest that the physical differences observed today among modern humans are results of adaptation by population who migrated to the particular regions where they settled down. Early humans ways of obtaining food. Early humans would have obtained food through a number of ways such as gathering, scavenging, hunting and fishing. Gathering would involve collecting plants food such as seeds, nuts, fruits, etc. Early humans scavenged for foraged for meat and marrow from the dead bodies of animals that had died naturally or had been killed by other predators. Hunting began about the 5 lakh years ago. The earliest evidences from plant hunting come from box grave in southern England and Scandinavia in Germany. Fishing was also important, as is evident from the discovery of fish born at different sites. Early humans from trees to cave and open air sites. Archaeologists suggest that early humans, Homo habilis, spent much of their times in trees between 4 40,000 and 1025 years ago. Caves and open air sites began to be used as shelter. Evidences of this comes from sites in Europe. Inside the caves, herds and evidences of different food sources were found. Flimsy shelters with the roof of wood and grasses were built for short-term seasonal visits. Fire provided warmth and light inside caves and could be used for cooking. Besides, fire was used to harden wood and scare away dangerous animals. And the second theme, writing and city life. Mesopotamia and its geography. Iraq is a land of diverse environment. Northeast plains and mountain ranges with enough rainfall to grow crop. Here agriculture began in 7000 and 6000 BC. On the north side, a stretch of upland called steppe, where animal herding offers people a better livelihood than agriculture. And the eastern side, tributaries of Tigris, these helped to carry goods to Iran region. And the southern part, desert region, the alluvial soil deposited by river Euphrates and Tigris made this region fertile. The early cities and writing developed in this region. The development of writing. The first Mesopotamian tablets were written around 3200 BC. It contained pictures like signs and numbers. These include oxen, fish, bread, dove, etc. Mesopotamians wrote a tablets of clay. A scribe would wet the clay and put into a size to could hold comfortably in one hand. With the sharp and the reed, the scribes presses wedge-shaped cuneiform sign on the smoothened surface. When it is dried in the sun, the clay would harden and table would become indestructible. Once it dried, signs could not be pressed onto a tablet. So each transaction required a separate written tablet. It is because of this that we obtained hundreds of tablets at Mesopotamian sites. By 2600 BC, the letters became cuneiform and the language was Sumerian. The term cuneiform is derived from the Latin word, two Latin words, cuneus means wedge and forma meaning shape. The word cuneiform means wedge shaped. Writing was now used not only for keeping records but also for making dictionaries, giving legal validity to land transfers, narrating the deeds of kings and announcing the changes a king had made in the customary law of the land. The sound that a cuneiform sign was not the single consonant or vowel but syllables. So, a Mesopotamian scribe had to learn hundreds of signs, so writing was a skilled craft. Majority of Mesopotamians could not read and write. There were hundreds of signs to learn. Many of them were complex. There is a connection between city life, trade and writing. We understand this from a long Sumerian epic poem about Enmerkar, one of the earliest ruler of Uruk. This poem tells us that in the Mesopotamia, it was kinship that organized trade and writing. This poem also tells us that ring was a means of storing information and of sending messages to far off places. Above all, writing was considered as a sign of superiority of Mesopotamian culture. A trading towns in a pastoral zone. A royal capital of Mari flourished after 2000 BC. Mari is situated on the upstream on the Euphrates. Agriculture and animal rearing were carried out in this region. Herders and farmers exchanged their goods each other, yet there were conflict between herders and farmers. Conflict was due to following reasons. A shepherd may take this flock to water across his own field. This may ruin in the crop. Sometimes herdsmen raided agricultural villages and seized farmers' stored goods. On the other hand, the farmers made any pastoralites access to river and canal water along a certain set of path. Mesopotamian society and culture were open to different people and culture. The validity of the civilization was due to this intermixture. The king of Mari were Amorites. Their dress were different from the original inhabitant. They respected God of Mesopotamia and raised a temple at Mari for Dagon, god of the steppe. Mari is a good example of an urban center prospering one trade. Boats carrying grinding stones, wood, wine, and oil jar would stop at Mari on their way on the southern cities. Mari was a halting point. Officers of Mari lived about 1/10 of the value of the good as tax. Barley came in special grain boards. Copper and tin were important items for trade. As bronze was the main industrial material for tools and weapons, this trade was the great importance. Thus, although the kingdom of Mari was militarily strong, it was unexpectedly prosperous. The legacy of writing. The greatest legacy of Mesopotamia to the world is its tradition of time reckoning and mathematics. They have multiplication, division tables, squares and square roots tables, and tables of components interest. The division of year in 12 months according to the revolution of the moon around the earth, the division of the month into 4 weeks, the day into 24 hours, and the hour into 60 minutes has come as from Mesopotamians. They observed solar and lunar eclipse and noticed their occurrence according to year, month, and day. The Mesopotamians achieved all these developments with the use of writing. Theme 3. An empire across 3 continents. The Roman Empire was a vast empire. Most of Europe, North Africa, and a large part of fertile crescents were part of it. The Roman Empire dominated the Mediterranean Sea and all regions around it. It stretches from Spain in the west to Syria in the east. The north, its boundaries were formed by the Rhine and Danube rivers and the Sahara Desert in the south. The continent of Europe and Africa are separated by Mediterranean Sea. It was the heart of the Roman Empire. Social hierarchies. The famous historian Tacitus described the leading social groups of early Roman Empire into 5 as follows. Senators. The second one, the leading members of the equestrian class. And third one, the respectable section of the people, middle class. The fourth one, the unkempt lower class, plebs, sordida. And the fifth one, slaves. In the late empire, the senators and the equestrian had emerged into a unified aristocracy. They were enormously wealth. Middle class considered as the person in the bureaucracy and army, prosperous merchants and farmers. Tacitus described the respectable middle class as a client of the great senatorial houses. Below them were the vast masses of the lower class known as humiliores. They comprised a rural labor force of which many were workers in estates, industrial and mining establishment, migrant workers, self-employed artisans, casual laborers, and thousands of slaves. Late Antiquity. Late Antiquity is the term used to describe the final fascinating periods in the evolution and breakup of Roman Empire. It refers broadly from the 4th to 7th century. The 4th century witnessed considerable changes in the cultural, economic, and political spheres. At the cultural level, the period saw momentous development in the religious life. The Emperor Constantine made Christianity as official religion. There were changes in the structure of the state during the time of Diocletian and Constantine. Changes during the time of Diocletian abandoned territories with the little strategic or economic value, fortified frontiers, separated civilian from the military functions, greater autonomy to the military commanders. And the changes during the time of Constantine introduced solidus, a new coin of 4.5 grams of pure gold, created a second capital at Constantinople. And the theme for the central Islamic land, the caliphate. After Muhammad's death in 632, no one could legitimately claim to be the next prophet of Islam. As a result, his political authority was transferred into the Ummah with no established principles of succession. This created opportunities for innovation but also caused deep divisions among the Muslims. The biggest innovation was the creation of the institution of caliphate, in which the leader of the community became the deputy of the prophet. The first four caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, justified their powers on the basis of their close association with the Prophet and their work under the general guidelines he had provided. The twin objectives of the caliphate were to retain control over the tribes constituting the Ummah and to raise resources for the state. In the conquered territories, caliphs introduced a new form of administration. The vast empire was divided into provinces under governors, Amir. Local units were controlled with the tribal chieftains, Ashraf. The central treasury, Baitul Mal, obtained in revenue from the taxes paid by Muslims as well as its share of the booty from raids. The non-Muslims population retained their right to property and religious practices on payment of taxes, garage and jizya. Jews and Christians were declared protected subjects of the states, dhimmis. At the beginning of the rule of Ali, the fourth caliph, there was a civil war between the caliph and the Meccan aristocracy. Meccans were led by the Aisha and the wife of Prophet. This battle was known as the Battle of Camel. Aisha was defeated. Ali's supporters and enemies later came from the two main sects of Islam, Shias and Sunnis. The Umayyad. Muawiyah was the founder of the Umayyad dynasty. The Umayyad implemented a series of political measures which consolidated their leadership within the Ummah. The first Umayyad caliph Muawiyah moved his capital to Damascus and adopted the court ceremonies and administrative institutions to Byzantine Empire. He also introduced hereditary succession and persuaded the leading Muslims to accept his son as his heir. During this reign of Abdul Malik and his successors, great emphasis had been given to the Arab and Islamic identities. Abdul Malik made the Arabic as the language of administration. He introduced a Islamic coinage. He constructed Dome of Rock, the Jerusalem. It was a visible contribution to the development of Arab Islamic identity. The Abbasid Revolution. The Umayyad rule was followed by the Abbasid rule in 750. The Abbasid portrayed the Umayyad regime as evil and promised a restoration of the original Islam of the Prophet. This movement was known as Dawa. The Abbasid revolution broke out in the region of Khurasan. The Abbasid were descendant of the Abbas, the Prophet's uncle. The Abbasid army was led by Abu Muslim, an Iranian slave. He defeated the last Umayyad Caliph Marwan in the Battle of River Sab. The Abbasid revolution led not only the changes of dynasty but changes in the political structure and the culture of Islam. Under Abbasid rule, Arab influence declined while the importance of Iranian culture increased. The Abbasid established their capital at Baghdad. They reorganized the army and the bureaucracy on a non-tribal basis. The Abbasid did their best to strengthen the religious status and the factions of the caliphs, learning and culture. The social and religious experience of the Muslim widened because of the contact with other people. Scholars raised some questions about the objectives of life of a Muslim, his behavior, etc. Their aim was to strengthen the social identity of the community as well as to satisfy their intellectual curiosity. Islamic law. Religious scholars, ulemas, devoted themselves to writing interpretation to the Quran and documenting what the Prophet taught and preached. Some ulema codified Islamic law or Sharia. Sharia is a body of Islamic law derived from the Quran and Hadith. While in the interpreting the code, there aroused some differences of opinion. This led to the formation of different schools, mazhab of Islamic jurisprudence. This was Maliki, Hanafi, Shafi, and Hanbali school, each named after a leading jurist. Sufism. Sufis were a group of religious minded people who sought a deep and more personal knowledge of God through asceticism and mysticism. They preached that unity can be achieved through an intense love of God. Rabia of Baza, a woman saint, preached this in her poems. Bayazid Bistami, an Iranian Sufi, was the first to teach the importance of submerging the self in God. Sufis used musical concerts to induce ecstasy and stimulate emotions of love and passion. Sufism is open to all regardless of religion. By making religion more personal and less institutional, Sufism gained popularity and posed a changes to Orthodox Islam. Philosophy. The medieval period witnessed a new dimension about the vision of God and universe. It developed due to the influence of Greek philosophy. The study of Greek philosophy promoted critical inquiry and had a profound influence on intellectual life. Translation. Translation became a well organized activity under Al Mamun, who supported the Library Cum Institute of Science in Baghdad. The works of Aristotle, Euclid's Elements, Ptolemy, Almagest, and some Indian texts as astronomy, mathematics, and medicine were translated into Arabic. Medicine. Ibn Sina, a doctor by profession and a philosopher, did not believe in the resurrections of the body on the day of judgment. His medical book Al Qanun fil Tab was widely read. This book lists 760 drugs sold by pharmacists of this day and includes notes on these experiments conducted in hospitals. The canon points out the importance of dietetics, the influences of climate and environment of the health, and the contagious nature of some diseases. The canon was used as a textbook in the Europe, where the author was known as Avicenna. Language and literature. Medieval Islamic society considered fine language and creative imagination as the most appreciated qualities of a person. These qualities raised a person's communication to the level of adab, a term which implies literary and cultural refinement. Abu Nuwas composed classical poetry. The central themes of Abu Nuwas' poem were wine and male love, the thing forbidden by Islam. Rudaki was considered as the father of New Persian poetry. New Persian poetry included new forms such as short lyrical poem, ghazal, and quatrain. Rubai. The Rubai is a 4-line stanza in which the first 2 lines set as the stage and the third is finely poised and the fourth delivered as point. The Rubai reached its zenith in the hands of Umar Khayyam. At the beginning of the 11th century, Ghazni became the center of Persian literature. Mahmud Ghazni gathered around him a group of poets. Among the Firdausi, as well known in his monumental work, was Shahnama, Kalila wa Dhimna, Arabic translation of Panchatantra, Adventures of Alexander and Simbad. The 1001 Nights is a collection of stories told by the single narrator Shahzad to her husband night after night. History. The Muslim society, the tradition of history writing was well established. 2 major historical works of the Ansab al-Ashraf, Genealogy of Nobles, and the Baladuri and Tariq al-Rasul wal Muluk, History of Prophet and Kings of Tabari. Geography. Geography and travels book were also written. Muqaddaji Azan al-Taqasim is a comparative study of the countries and people of world. Geography and general history were combined by Muruj al-Dahab of Mazudi, al-Bruni's famous Turkic Malil Hind was a greatest attempt by an 11th century Muslim writer to look beyond the world of Islam and observe as was value in other cultural tradition. Architecture. By the 10th century, an Islamic world had emerged. Religious buildings were the greatest external symbols of this world. Mosques, shrines, and tombs from the Spain to Central Asia showed the same basic design: arcs, domes, minarets, and open courtyard, and expressed the spiritual and political needs of Muslims. Two special features of the hall of mosque were a niche mihrab in the wall indicating the direction of Mecca, and the pulpit minbar where sermons were delivered during the noon prayers on Friday. Not only the mosque but also caravanserais, hospitals, and places we can see the same pattern of construction. The oasis, desert places, were built by Umayyad, Girbat al-Mafjar in Palestine, and Khoizer Amra in Jordan in such buildings. In the religion art of Islam, representation of living being is forbidden. This gave way to two art forms: calligraphy, the art of beautiful writing, and the arabesque, geometric and vegetable designs. And we discussing the next class, the other sixth topic. Okay, see you next class.